Good morning, day 5 already. Kiddos are in the back seat, but I wanted to talk about how did Jesus pray? Think about this. If there's ever someone who didn't need God's direction, you'd think it would be Jesus, right? It's this great paradox, but we believe that Jesus is fully human and fully divine at the same time, and yet still, we see that Jesus prayed early and often. As we continue to learn about prayer, I think it's pertinent that we learn we ought to ask, how did Jesus pray? He's the only person to exist who had a perfect relationship with God the Father their whole life, after all. And so it'd be pretty wise to learn from him. And if you read through all 4 Gospels, you'd find nearly 50 times that Jesus prayed or practiced or taught about prayer or the importance of prayer. For example, Jesus praying alone, praying in public, early hours in the morning, late at night, praying before meals or essential decisions, praying before and even after healings. You get the sense that he communicated with God the Father and the Holy Spirit everywhere he went. By looking at his example, we see that Jesus made prayer a priority at all times and in all circumstances. The word priority is funny and it has kind of a surprising history in our English language. According to some historians, especially in the book Essentialism, the word priority came into the English language in the 1400s. It was meant to be this kind of singular word meaning the very first thing. We pluralized this term somewhere along the line so we could have multiple priorities simultaneously, but really having many things as top priority means that we have nothing as our top priority. Prayer was a priority for Jesus. Let me ask you, is it for you? Take a look back at the last week of your life before we entered this season of prayer. If God answered every one of your prayer requests, what would be different in the world today? Sit with it and think about it. Be honest. Sadly, if I answered the question for myself, there'd be some weeks that the world wouldn't look any different than it does. If my prayers were answered in the way I asked them to, here's some of the ways it might look different. My sermon would be more creative or funny or powerful. New people might come to church. Notre Dame might win the national championship at least once in my lifetime, right? My kids would have done well at the preschool. Danielle would have a great week. A couple people might have found new jobs. A few healings might have happened. But if I'm honest, most weeks, nothing crazy, nothing too spiritual or powerful would have happened most weeks if all my prayers were answered. How about you, though? If you genuinely believe in the power of prayer, you too would prioritize it just like Jesus. But the great news is that no matter how your prayer habits have been in the past, you and I have an excellent opportunity to start anew today. In fact, we can start and pray to God right now and not only thank him for his grace, but ask him for the wisdom to help us in this area. Your challenge today is to look back on the week before we entered the season of prayer and ask yourself, what would be different? If God answered every one of my prayer requests, what would be different? This morning, I want to close by asking you to pray for me and your pastor and your leadership team. I hope you all have a blessed weekend, and we'll see y'all tomorrow morning.